There is a moment nobody films. The last line comes off the bollard, a sailor coils it down on deck, and the gap between the hull and the pier goes from nothing to a foot to 20 feet. That gap will keep growing for the next 6 months. Everyone who is aboard at that moment is aboard for all of it. Not because someone is guarding the door. There is no door. That is the part people get wrong. They picture a locked gate and a person with a key. What is actually holding everyone in place is water, distance, and a schedule that was printed weeks before the ship ever moved. Ashore, quitting is a conversation. You give notice, you work out 2 weeks, you hand back a badge. The whole thing assumes one quiet fact, that you can physically leave the building at the end of it. Take away that assumption and the word stops meaning anything at all. A warship at sea removes that assumption completely, not as a punishment, as geometry. 200 miles of open water in every direction is not a rule anyone wrote down. It is just where the ship is, and the ship is going to keep being there, whether or not anyone aboard is still enthusiastic about it. So the Navy did the only sensible thing. If people cannot leave, the system has to be built so that nobody ever needs to. Everything that a person might walk off the ship to get has to already be aboard. Food, water, medicine, spare parts, a place to sleep, someone to fix your teeth. Start with the obvious one. Thousands of people eat several times a day, every day for months, and there is no store. So the ship carries the store inside itself. Freezers the size of apartments, pallets stacked to the overhead in spaces most of the crew never sees, loaded weeks ago by people who calculated exactly how much a crew of that size consumes, and then added a margin, because running out is not an inconvenience out there. It is a change of mission. The galley runs around the clock because the crew does. Somebody is always coming off watch hungry at a strange hour. Meals are not a break in the day. They are the one place where the entire schedule of the ship becomes visible, all 4 watch sections passing through the same line. Now the less obvious one, things break. On land, something breaks and you call a company, and the company sends somebody in a van. At sea, the company is a compartment 2 decks down, with a lathe in it and a sailor who has been doing this for 11 years. If the part does not exist aboard, somebody machines it out of stock metal. If nobody aboard can fix it, it does not get fixed, and the ship works around it until the next port. That is what a closed system actually means. Not that the doors are locked, that every function the ship needs has a person attached to it, and that person is the only one. There is no second cook who was hired in case the first one has a bad week. Which brings us to the real reason nobody can simply quit. It is not the water, it is the watch bill. A single sheet of paper, printed and posted, with names in boxes and times beside them. Every hour of the next month is covered, and every hour has exactly one name. Pull one name out of that sheet and you do not create a gap. You create a hole that somebody else has to fall into. There is no pool of spare people. The person who covers you is the person standing the watch before yours, and they have already been awake for 6 hours. That is the mechanism, and it is oddly gentle once you see it. Nobody is threatening anyone. The pressure comes from the fact that the cost of your absence lands on a specific human being whose name is printed 1 line above yours, and you have to eat breakfast with them. Time aboard is not measured in days, it is measured in watches. 6 hours on, 12 off, and the 12 are not yours. They contain drills, maintenance, cleaning, training, and sleep, in whatever order the day permits. A month at sea is not 30 days. It is 120 rotations. Sleeping quarters make the point better than any rule could. Bunks stacked 3 high, a curtain, and a shallow pan underneath for everything you own. Privacy is a piece of fabric. Nobody designed it to be cruel. It is what happens when you fit a small town inside a hull that also has to carry fuel, aircraft, weapons, water plants, and a hospital, and the town gets whatever volume is left over after all of that. And that small town has to keep moving. The engineering plant does not idle politely while people rest. Machinery turns, fuel burns, water is made from seawater and used and made again. Every one of those processes has a person watching a gauge somewhere, at every hour, including this one. So when someone asks why a sailor cannot just walk away, The honest answer is not dramatic. It is that there is nowhere to walk to, and the walking would be the least of the problem anyway. The problem is the hole in the paper. Subscribe. Now, does anything ever come off the ship? Yes, but notice how it happens. Not by a person deciding. Supplies arrive from another ship steaming 100 feet away, connected by cables, both hulls holding course for hours while pallets fly across the gap. That is the door, and it opens on a schedule. The other door has rotors. A helicopter can land, take something aboard, take something off, and leave. Mail, parts, people. But an aircraft comes when the operation allows it, not when someone has had enough. And the deck it lands on has to be ready to receive it. There is a third door, and it is the strangest one. A cargo plane lands on a moving ship, drops a few thousand pounds of parts and passengers, and is thrown back into the air within minutes. That is the entire connection between 5,000 people and the rest of the world. Every one of those doors goes both ways, and every one of them is a ship-level decision, not a personal one. The question is never whether someone wants to go. It is whether the operation can spare the aircraft, the fuel, the deck time, and the person's job for the days it takes, which is why the system leans so hard on the opposite motion. Instead of moving people off the ship, it moves everything the ship needs onto it. Fuel through a hose, food in nets, parts in boxes. The pattern is always the same. Bring it out here, do not send anybody back. Watch a replenishment sometime, and you will see the whole philosophy in one picture. Two ships that could each be a mile from anything, deliberately closing to 100 feet and staying there, because it is easier to move 10 tons of food than to move one person home. Meanwhile, the ship keeps doing the thing it exists to do. Formations of hulls holding station on each other, all of them tied to the same plan, all of them arriving somewhere on a day that was decided long before any individual aboard had an opinion about it. Night makes it clearest. The deck goes dark except for colored lights, the wake glows a little, and the horizon disappears entirely. There is nothing out there to walk toward, not metaphorically, physically. The nearest solid ground is under 4,000 meters of water, and yet the ship is not quiet. Somebody is on the bridge reading a heading off a repeater. Somebody is on a sound-powered phone repeating a number back. Somebody is walking a compartment with a flashlight, checking that nothing has changed since the last time anyone looked. This is the part that surprises people. The system that makes leaving impossible is the same system that makes staying survivable. Fixed hours, known relief. A person who will absolutely arrive to take your place, because their name is in the box below yours. Take that structure away, and a 6-month deployment would be unbearable. Keep it, and the impossible thing becomes ordinary. Not pleasant, ordinary. There is a difference, and the whole design of shipboard life lives inside that difference. Predictability is the only comfort available out there, so the system manufactures it deliberately in enormous quantities and hands it out in 6-hour pieces. The contract works the same way, and it is worth saying plainly, because this is where the myths live. Enlistment is a term of service with dates on it. It is a schedule, the same as the watch bill, printed further ahead. Not a trap, a calendar with more pages than most. People come and go from a crew constantly. New sailors arrive, experienced ones transfer. Jobs are handed over with a folder and a walkthrough. All of it happens at the pier, in port, on planned days, because that is where the doors are and when they open. Which means the pier is not just concrete, it is the interface between two entirely different sets of rules. On one side, you can walk away and buy a coffee. On the other, your movements are a printed matrix. The line between them is about the width of a gangway. So the ship loads. Boxes come aboard for days. Forklifts run in chains. A working party forms a human conveyor down a passageway. And cases go hand to hand because there is no cargo elevator that reaches everywhere, and there never will be. Then the lines come off again, and everything resets. The horizon closes. The watch bill takes over. The distance to the nearest place a person could stop being a sailor grows at about 30 miles an hour, quietly for as long as it needs to. and months later it runs backwards. Land appears where there was nothing. Tugs come out. The crew forms up along the edge of the deck in dress uniform, shoulder to shoulder, facing a shoreline that was theoretical yesterday. The lines go back over. Somebody on the pier catches them and drops an eye over a bollard, and a winch takes up the slack. The gap that opened 1 foot at a time closes the same way, slowly, and the moment steel touches fendering, the rules on the other side apply again. That is the entire cycle, beginning to end, and it does not have a shortcut anywhere in the middle of it. So the answer to why nobody can simply quit a ship at sea is not about willpower or discipline or any of the words people reach for. It is that the ship is a closed loop with 2 openings, and both of them are at the pier. Everything in between, the watches, the bunks, the freezers, the machine shop, the paper with names in boxes, exists because of that one fact. Design a system for people who cannot leave, and you get something that looks strict from outside and feels like structure from inside. It is also why the small things aboard get taken so seriously. When there is no walking away, there is no letting anything slide either. A habit that would be a minor annoyance in an office becomes a problem that lives with you for 6 months. And on a carrier, that principle gets turned into paint. There are areas on a flight deck where standing in the wrong place is not a rule violation, but a physical fact with consequences. And the boundaries are drawn on the steel in colors everyone learns before they are allowed up there. Those lines, what they mean, and why crossing one is treated more seriously than almost anything else aboard. That is the next one. Subscribe, and you will get it when it goes up.